If you had been one of my mentors, or had been my soul mentor, what would you have hoped that I would take from you into my life in the world? I think that's a very
I've
important.
seen between the cracks that we could have a future that would welcome us in. And this is so far off the scale. Most people can't even hear it right now. But the idea of, yeah, you have recycling. And I'm not going to denigrate that. We recycle fanatically in this house. The best we can do. But the idea of there's no waste, or there's no sloppiness, or there's no around the edges, or there's man has to take what he takes from the environment and reuse it over and over again. That's such a closed loop. What I want to see, if I could just throw a dart at my vision, is what I would call synergistic living. You talked about man's separation from the natural world, and we do it. We're bombarded with it every day, that germs are bad, viruses are diseases. We have to make sterile.
Yes, yes. Sterilize.
Everything,
Sterilize.
in order for us to live, and this is so far from the between the cracks truth that I've seen. And what I believe is we can wake up to the synergistic aspect of life, the natural world and all that is in it. Technology, all that is in it, is on our side. Suppose that we could take our recycling and combine it with bacteria. And bacteria that would be happy to thrive and live,
Yes.
eat what we don't need and break it down into organic material. Don't you think the bacteria would cooperate?
Oh, sure it would.
They just want to live,
Of course it would. They want to live
multiply
just like
cool
every
stuff.
like
Right.
everybody.
So why aren't we looking at bacteria to synergistically work with what we can't work with? Not recycle, remake the floor. What about a virus? Evolving us to be resistant to a disease when we don't need that disease to knock down the population. War and disease do that. You know, what do you do if you want to stop overpopulating? If you won't do it voluntarily, nature, you watch it in the animals all the time. Well, what if we had viruses not created in the lab, but synergistically because we desired a different kind of solution? What if we had life, the concept that life works with our human inventiveness? That is a whole other scale of music. That we don't have to suppress nature, we have to invite her in. We have to put her on the game board.
Yeah.
But the lab locks her out. It says we have to replicate the same cycle to prove it. Nature doesn't work like that. No two things are alike, no two actions are alike, no two events are alike. The quantum bears this out. So what do? Instead of walling things out and saying nature behaved, we want to see exactly the same result. What if the diversity of nature was the solution and we could invite her to dance with us?
Nature is the only perfect example we have.
She's done it for centuries, for
Yes.
every species
Long
that's
before
going.
we were here, long before we were here.
And species that didn't want to continue, something else came along. I mean, ideas changed. The idea of things evolved. Nature did not static and say preserve everything, no longer. That would be recycling, keeping the same stasis.
Yeah.
So I want to see synergistic movement with our natural world. So when we step away from our separation, we come back together in a whole new way. But I don't know what's going to break the box on that. I try to reach for that often in my daily life. And I've seen some pretty remarkable results, but it's not the kind of thing that you can talk about because a lot of people go running straight for the hills. You know, the woman who scrubs her kitchen down with Clorox every day just doesn't want to hear about
Yeah.
a bacteria or a bug taking
Yes.
on a problem.
Yes. Yes.
But you know, you look at something like ethanol from algae. Algae eats carbon waste. It eats pollution. It can be done in a closed system where no water gets wasted, and it's perfectly happy to replicate itself by the pound every day. Now, we haven't got technologically the way to convert that biomass, but you can grow that biomass in a no environment, in a very compacted small space, and that's using life in our favor. We're taking the immense drive of that algae to reproduce and feeding it stuff we can't use.
Right.
Lord, That may not be the end solution, but it's certainly a better one than growing corn and depleting the soil and ripping apart our environment to make. So yeah, there's many solutions. They're all around us, but I think we too often look at life as the enemy. Nature is the enemy. Nature is something to be tamed, controlled. We don't look on her as a partner who can take an equal part creativity. And there, if I had to guess where the future's going, that's the one I want. Is where we dance with what's on this earth, and it won't look like the earth was, and it won't look like the earth is now. It'll be a better earth for everything, and all the species will have a place and a voice. But what I still see is people are afraid of the unseen. They're afraid of the storm, they're afraid of the unseen bacteria, they're afraid of... So fear is still, instead of looking on these guys as, 90% of viruses or 99% of bacteria are proven harmless to you. In fact, they're beneficial. You don't get taught that in school.
I can remember from my perspective in the retail industry, had seen so many products, antimicrobial, antibacterial.
Breaks my heart.
And people were getting sicker. We've just got to make it stronger. And the stronger they made it, the worse the problem became.
Well, guess what? Those guys, all they want to do is live, and when you suppress them, they bound back really hard. So
with a vengeance.
So harness that, bring that into the work in harmony with that.
Well,
you think they're not going to cooperate with something that lets them live?
Our bodies are teeming with bacteria that are working in a beneficial
Exactly.
form every single day, and people are, you're going to wash and get rid of it.
You can't digest your food without them.
Yeah.
So I think that, I don't know what's going to change that direction, and I don't know if that doesn't take what both of your mentors taught you and combines it in a new way. But that's what I would tell you is look for that future where life works with you.
With us.
And you don't have to, you take the natural forces that are kicking and screaming to live, and you make them, you ask them.
They have just,
You work with them.
those lives have as much right to be here as we do.
But you get them on your side, and
Yes.
you work with them, and you give them what they need. So it's a synergistic thing. The boundary is...
Working together, yes.
Right. But it's not going back to the Stone Age.
No.
I see it as a synergistic...
Oh, no, we don't know. There's no need to go back to the Stone Age. That's, we don't need to step that far back. I think we can take a few steps back to get nature back in conjunction with us. It doesn't mean we have to go all the way back to living in caves.
Yeah, but take those drives and work in harmony with them.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to
Okay.
go.
I think we've reached our